Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Café, Muse, and may the 4th be with you. Thanks to Henry Crawford for his technical wizardry. I'm Luther Jett. I'll be co-hosting this evening, along with Ellen Cole. Tonight's featured readers are Carrie Bennett and Dorsia Smith Silva. I will be introducing Carrie, while Ellen will introduce Dorsia. A few housekeeping details for everybody. If you have any trouble hearing the poets, you can actually use the Zoom closed caption feature. Look for a gray box at the bottom of your screen labeled CC. Click on it and then choose Show Subtitles. Closed captions will then appear at the bottom of your screen. We have muted all of your microphones, so the unexpected dogs barking, children laughing, doorbells ringing won't interrupt the program. You can use the chat feature, however, to make comments. Bear with us if we encounter a technical glitch. We'll be right back. If time permits, after we've heard from both Dorsia and Carrie, there will be a short question and answer session moderated by WordWorks founder Karen Lanier. If you have questions for either or both poets, feel free to drop those into the chat. We can't guarantee that there will be time for all your questions, but we'll do our best. And we encourage everyone to buy our poets' books. We will drop a link in the chat that will send you to the site where you can place your order. Café Muse is a nonprofit organization with an all-volunteer team. We also encourage you to donate to Café Muse in support of its literary programs. And again, we'll put a donation link in the chat. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Carrie Bennett. She is the author of 4 books of poetry. Most recently, The Mouth is Also a Compass, which was a winner of the 2023 Barrow Street Poetry Prize. Her other books include Biography of Water, The Land is a Painted Thing, and Lost Letters and Other Animals. She holds an MFA from the Iowa Writers Workshop and is currently teaching writing at Boston University. She's a Massachusetts Cultural Council Artist Fellow and lives in Somerville, Massachusetts with her family. That most recent collection, The Mouth is Also a Compass, takes the reader on a trek into a future we wish we could avoid. It's a vision of the eco-apocalypse that looms like a ghostly glacier beyond the daily headlines. But Bennett is not resigned, nor is she content to simply sound the alarm. Rather, she seeks to map out a way forward. On any given trail, there is a yearning, she writes in the poem How to Survive Common Diseases, Wolf Envy. Using a lightning roadmap will help illuminate an opened mouth. The final third of her book is formatted as a guidebook, The Explorer's Handbook of Survival. But the question is not how we may survive ecocide, but whether we merit survival. And this is no indictment. Bennett believes we are worth saving, along with the rest of the planet. In every field contains a frozen bird. Carrie tells us of a meadow where maps scatter like soft stars, and bright flags wave, a sky filled with songbirds I will never see again. Here is grief, yearning, and ache for what may be lost. She asks, will I forget the red beak of a cardinal? Even the stars will die eventually, she informs us in How to Find the Last Ice Age. Yet as fatalistic as those words may sound, a note of optimism can be heard in the poem How the Last Ice Age Appears, which is in the closing pages. She writes, "A valley of green light rises from the water. The ocean continues to beat its enormous liquid heart." Please welcome Carrie Bennett.
Thank you so much, Luther. That was a really nice introduction. So yes, I will be reading from my book, The Mouth is Also a Compass. And it's also nice to be here because my very first book many years ago was published by WordWorks, so it holds a nice place in my heart. So just like a few things to say about this book. It started as sort of like a exercise experiment. I had just finished a project and was honestly a little bored with my own writing. And it was summer and I was going out and doing all these adventures, and I just like saw um, Richard Byrd's Alone. It's a memoir about his time in Antarctica. And I'd read it many years ago and I thought, oh, I'm going to read this again. Why not? Um, and it really pulled me in. And so I made these exercises for myself where I had to create one prose poem through erasure for each of the chapters. And that was really the foundation for this book. And, over the 10 years it took me to write this, of course, it evolved and the erasure prose poems de-evolved to some extent. So that structure sort of dissolved, but that's really the foundation of the book. And I really think of it as an expedition, sort of my own attempt at grappling with the climate crisis through this sort of metaphorical eco-poetics lens. Um, Okay, so I'll start with the first section, which is really the most direct with the expedition. And I guess I'll read the two epigraphs. So the first one is by Megan Hunter, The End We Start From. In the first light of dawn, a black cloud grew from the sea. They saw the shape of the storm coming towards them, taking up the whole sky. The second one is Yoto Barada. You have to be fatalistic. It's the only way to survive. Okay, so the expedition begins. Before I leave, Fifth Avenue becomes a desert. The work is done. I need more solitude to uncover the aurora work caught up in the waves. The weather is personal. Robots observe the earth. Clouds scrape the horizon. Machines on every island. The coast fixed like a brainstem to chart destruction. My inadequacies crowd the night. A throwing bridge, a heaving ocean, below broken ice, a hurricane whipped water, frozen at the height of blow. The unbroken night lasts 8 months, a city or a raft, a sunless wastewater. Lost creatures ambush my ship. I leave to find the last ice age. The evidence escaped like smoke. At least I haven't lost the moon. After the fires and floods and droughts, after the flocks of birds fell to land, now I crave a sky the color of peaches. I crave water warm with lemon, my real luxury, still starlight. My eyes keep cowling to men who either serve authority or tomorrow. No beleaguered sea ever defends the law. It's mapped out in either direction, blotting out barriers, bottomless blocks of history. See nothing, blank. I'm careful, lost like a distant sail. And this is the poem that Luther referenced in the intro. So I was planning on reading it, and you'll hear several of the same lines. Every field contains a frozen bird. Not even a footprint left behind. Maps scatter like soft stars through fields. Where are the scientists that charted this land? Bright flags wave, and I close my eyes to a sky filled with songbirds I'll never see again. My backyard cut with yellow, a sharp streak of blue. Will I forget the red beak of a cardinal? Sometimes I see phantoms, strands of smoke or breath or sprays of white flowers. I stand for hours in front of fallen rocks. I am grateful for the wolf following me. Read a few more from this section. Thank you. Sunrise meets sunset. I attempt contact with the last ice age. Switches and coils, my heart misgives the Morse code. Spend hours melting snow over the weak spots. I'm caught now, really caught, double action and all. Ice alone was not to blame. Yesterday's failures impress me, emergencies already planned. 35 feet below, I know a hard brittle. I know bitterness evaporates what washes up. I can walk, I can't leave nice straight lines. Unpredictable nakedness. I rarely spend time forgetting civilization. I will remember microscopic touch like firecrackers, coats every exposed object. At home, I used to trace the glow thrown up. Like a little watchtower, I spent evenings stowed behind locked doors, blinds tight as lids, barely a streak of light, too busy, too tired. I drove my car, ate my meals, bought my clothes, ground to a sinking, the ocean forced to hold my abundant weaknesses, could almost ignore the next storm in the blazing newness of each morning. Now I dig a hole collecting the wind vane. A fearful lifting remains, the lowest pin. Contrive a cure to cut so much. Huge red barrier edge. This latitude itself free. All innocently. Water, water, still more water. Arctic isolation 2. Memories live on moving snowdrifts. A clock bell echoing in darkness, or car horns, a conversation muted by rain, an airplane overhead, the buzz of a single bee, a background of steady machines thrumming, the sharp horizon line, how it bleeds from orange to red to pink, how the sky slowly turns off like a cave of forgetting or falling over a bottomless pit. This will be the last poem I read from this first section, Arctic Isolation 3. The wolf mothers me. She cleans my face, my palms, her tongue and eyes the color of amber. We sit as close to the fire as we can. No plan. I look everywhere for the outlines of other planets. So the second section, it's called Fragments Inside the Storm. And they are also working with some language I used from Bird's memoir. But these are really truly fragments kind of swirling on the page, sort of evoking that feeling of being inside the storm. So I'll read a few of these fragments. So Fragments Inside the Storm. How far can I go with this storm? Carve a thin line into the ground to record my existence. My new rule: I will punish myself if I damage a tree or shrub or any living thing, even if by accidents. My iceberg sings unseen melting to a sea startled green. Above me, a burning house without walls, more currents circle like a lost creature. Sometimes I speak and my words sound red. Trapdoor my lungs, sliding little throat. I couldn't be the ladder of something else. The mouth wasn't strong enough to grow a hyacinth. My fingers sprout yellow, dust to seed, and a single speckled feather inside my pocket. The evidence disappears like pollen. What I know, The trapdoor won't bloom, and wolf is a language that answers only to speed and freedom. Call it next day, call it ray of coronas, my heart a sinking ship. This will be the last fragment. In the dream, I hide all the animals in a deep hole. Hope will keep them safe until morning. So the last section is the Explorer's Handbook of Survival, as Luther referenced. And I got really interested in researching like survival handbooks and just like the tools that explorers need on expeditions. And so I kind of like played with some of that language, and I also used it for my own purposes. So this is more of like a poetic book of survival, what the speaker or we might need in this strange new collapsing landscape. So chapter 1, how to survive sub-zero temperatures. So I only read a few of these, but some of the titles range from, let's see, how to handle a wounded animal, how to baffle the wind, how to locate a trapdoor. So they're kind of range. So how to survive sub-zero temperatures. Remember that you come from deer, that your hands were once hooves, that you ate only green, that you lifted your head and saw a rifle, that you lifted your head and saw white frost flowers veining the ground, that your body was all movement. Now a dragonfly lives in your mouth. Now you must collect large rocks to make a circle. Now you must sit inside the rock circle all day as the cold accumulates. Place your burden here. Chapter 6, how to abandon loneliness. Don't be sentimental about walking under a cluster of white lilacs one evening in spring. How the sun faded so carefully, even the birds forgot to stop singing. Don't think about your mouth, how you easily swallowed sweetness. Now you know that any abyss shines starkly, as if nothing could ever be nothing again. How to survive a rising sea. Remember that you come from the sea. 35,000 feet beneath, any creature absorbs a darkness complete. The seafloor expands to a new roundness. O confused moon, O single cell softest tongue. At these depths, division is a different dawn, mute and searching. Chapter 10, how to embrace the rubble. Sing as a city of draining light spins inside a hurricane. There is no broadening twilight, no frost breath, no sheer beauty, no God, no waves and radio, no adjusted receiver, no trail and thunder, no nail to the floor, no ghost of alternative view, no killing time, no kite or kite signal, no 2 o'clock, no knees knocking and blur, no flashlight, ladder, broadcast, no blind urging or line blurred light, no fire fallen, no red traces of flight, no where are they now, no else which was. There's nothing left to conquer. Your song reaches the rubble. Gather the pieces to you like a mother waiting for the wind's frenzy to quiet. I'll read 3 more. Chapter 12, how a species becomes extinct. There is no next life. What you wasted is spread before you like a coral reef. What is the last image you saw? Did you memorize it? That you can't see won't matter. That you're still human, even for only an hour. That you have hands that can no longer harm. In your dreams, the same deer is still your shadow. Last 2. Chapter 13, how to dream of the last ice age. Hands become too frostbitten to hurt. Weapons are covered with snow, forgotten, lost until spring when flowers grow into a new petaled white. A clean, deep well to surrender. In the last ice age, meadows are so green they turn coral in the sun. Only the very old die, a deep fall into a quiet sleep, And once the ice has thawed, they journey out to sea with orchids placed over their eyes. Chapter 14, How to Find the Last Ice Age. A bear will ask you for your burden. What is in your right hand? A just-birthed boulder. What is in your left hand? Whistle of lost leaf, feather rust of ravaged land. Even the stars die eventually. The entrance will appear as a trapdoor in a cloud, the sky scattering in all directions. Thank you.
Carrie, that was beautiful. I'm going to go on to introduce Dorsia Smith. I'm Ellen Cole, one of the co-hosts. I'm so pleased this evening to introduce our next reader. Dorsia Smith Silva. While preparing for this introduction, I had my first experience of Dorsia's poetry, and I'm extremely impressed. This is a poet to keep your eyes on. Dorsia Smith Silva is the author of In Inheritance of Drowning, her debut poetry collection published by Carrie Press in 2024. She's a poetry editor of The Hopper and full professor of English in the University of Puerto Rico. Her PhD is in Caribbean literature and language. Dorsia's work has appeared in Literary Hub, Poets.org, Poetry Daily, the Los Angeles Review, and other journals. And she has received fellowships and scholarships from Brett Loaf and the Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing. Dorsia is also the author of the chapbook Good Girl, editor of Latina Chicana Mothering, and the co-editor of 7 books. Dorsia told me she loves baking, long walks, yoga, and the music of Prince. In Inheritance of Drowning is a book of witness, as well as a cry from the heart. In heartbreaking poems, she writes of her experience surviving Hurricane Maria in 2017 and its brutal aftermath, the devastation to its vegetation, ecology, and people. Then she broadens her focus to include what racism in the continental United States has inflicted on Blacks, Indigenous peoples, and migrants. The long roll of names of minority individuals have been killed or disappeared in contemporary America. These poems are defiant, sad, lyrical, lively, delicate. Her craft is fierce and inventive, perfectly paired with the content of her poems. Reviewer Francis Ritchie writes, in Dorsia Smith Silva's new collection, In Inheritance of Drowning, we encounter a voice that understands violence, silence, loss, and the power of undertow. This overwhelming rush of rivers and blood reminds us we must not forget as the list of names grows like a gathering storm. And reviewer Derek Austin writes, Dorsia Smith Silva gathers vivid language for subjects as urgent and complex as anti-Blackness and climate catastrophe. In Inheritance of Drowning begins with moving examinations of Puerto Rico in the wave of hurricanes Irma and Maria. The collection ripples out from this center, moving from the particulars of family and community to political and ecological considerations that span oceans and borders. Silva's debut is dynamic and moving in its vision. Please join me in welcoming poet Dorsia Smith Silva.
Oh my goodness, Ellen, thank you so much for that kind and lovely introduction. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone for having me here. And Carrie, thank you for your lovely reading too. It's just so wonderful to be here. I'm already on a wonderful high after that introduction. Thank you so much. Um, as you mentioned, my book, An Inheritance of Drowning, everyone can see that. It centers Puerto Rico, the Hurricane Maria, which happened in 2017, and the aftermath of that, and how Puerto Rico is still rebuilding after that. And you would think like, well, it was 2017, what's happened? Just a lot of, lackluster responses, lack of funding, and you just see how the situation has exacerbated the problems of the United States with Puerto Rico, that relationship. So the first poem I'm going to read, it opens the book. And I wrote this poem thinking about when you look at the Doppler radar, and this is perfect because right now tonight, for those of you really into the arts and the Met Gala, it's designed with art tonight. And so I was telling somebody, I wrote this poem, what the poet is supposed to write about a hurricane, when I was looking at the Doppler radar. And when you're looking at it, you see all these colors and splotches. And I was thinking, if it was just a radar, just colors, you would really look at it and think it was art. Not really thinking like, well, these big patches means the hurricane is growing. And when you see the bands, that's the hurricane spreading and getting closer. So I was wondering, as an artist, as a poet, what are we supposed to write about a hurricane? So this is the poem that opens the book, An Inheritance of Drowning. What the poet is supposed to write about a hurricane should be skylights of horror, not skid rocks of beauty in walls of wind, affixed to the puzzle pieces of the vortex eye, spinning like a lost continent soul, how the lively whip should stun the mouths of gravity, hissing without hesitations, engulfing the stench of uprooted dirt and grass. The poet is supposed to decode the stanzas, shudder the name Maria into frail syllables, to wish a hurricane a fast and gritty death, not say its stubborn slow dances, held intoxicating possibilities and mysteries. So the next poem I'm going to read, thank you for the snaps, thank you so much, is called My Grandmother's Photo. And this poem really makes us think about when a hurricane comes, you have these other natural disasters. We can think about what happened in California with those horrible fires, and you're not really given a lot of time to gather those objects. So this is what happens when you lose things that you really cannot replace, such as your grandmother's photo. My grandmother's photo. She smiles in black and white, cotton pleated dress with a thick belt, showing her newlywed 25-inch waist, a size 4, long before the folds of stretched skin from 3 children. Her ebony hair hangs in shiny cascading ringlets, held by a slip of red ribbon and crystal combs. Her hand is wrapped tightly around my grandfather's, new gold branding their fingers, paid for by the weight of dirt and hot dawn mornings. With just one day, the rain washes out my grandmother's body and makes her a false whisper upon inspection. Brown dots replace her smile, and her hands are swallowed by dark spirals and bubbles. The thin edges fall into wrinkled tatters, sprinkles of paper breaking faster from sheets of water. The wind pushes her cracked and rearranged beside an overturned car, like a new broken flower in the grave. The next poem I'm going to read is called The Bee, and this is also based on a true experience. After Hurricane Maria, we were left without electricity. So for many of us, we had to hand wash our garments and then hang them outside. And when the sun did eventually appear, have them naturally dry outside. So cleaning our clothes also means our undergarments. So I was cleaning my brassiere, put it outside on the rack, and this poor bee was really trying to pollinate my brassiere. And I thought, there's nothing there for you. I'm sorry. It's just a circle of cotton. And it was so disoriented. And I really thought in that moment, we're all suffering. Humans, animals, insects, we're all on this earth. And it really made me realize that when we think of these disasters that happen on earth, we really have to extend sympathy and compassion to all creatures of this earth. It's not just humans that suffer, but it's all of us. And we also really have to think about our relationship with bees. They do so much with the pollination. And I really thought, wow, I have to extend, love for this bee. So I wrote this poem after that moment. The Bee. After Hurricane Maria, you spin in a daze, punch drunk from the fetid fumes of the generator. But you have made a decision to eat, live. You leap onto a dark tan bra that is widely flapping on the clothesline, eager to gather something sweet and bring it to the surface. And yet there is nothing there but a bare circle of cotton. You wonder how the hurricane galloped away, but the flowers, triggering a vanishing act. Well, where is the magician's wand to bring back the canopy of blossoms? It must be in the wind of loss, along with the why and because. There is no way to tell you about the aftermath, slow cruelty. It is a tale that claws cell by cell, leaving wings to litter this earth. So the next poem I'm going to read is called The Q&A Section, and it is also in my book. And this poem is for all of those that after a natural disaster, I put natural in quotes because, sometimes these events, unfortunately, are caused by our own actions. But I want to mention for those that have to leave their homelands, I think of those people in California that had to leave, not by choice, but by force after the fires. Those people from Hurricane Katrina that had to leave New Orleans. And I also think of the people that had to leave Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, not by choice, but because they lost their homes or they had to leave because of the job situations. In any case, they left. This poem is for you. The Q&A section. If you ask me why I left Puerto Rico, I would tell you that it wasn't because Hurricane Maria left me with a bloated album of waiting for the blackouts to skip between the trees. It wasn't because the roofs unfurled and the doors retreated to hollows somewhere in the sky. It wasn't because of the shells of water inching like new constellations across an endless night. It was the full circle of fear, the kind that stays in my mouth like neon jawbreakers, refusing to surrender, tailor-made to dislocate words that I long to speak. I dread colliding against this familiar when the memory gathers like burning hands around your throat. The next poem, oh, thank you so much, so kind. The next poem I'm going to read is a political poem. As Ellen mentioned, the book also looks at the racial, social, and political injustices happening in the United States. And this poem is for the BIPOC women that go missing and unfortunately don't get the national attention that they deserve. It's called Ghost Talker Poem. And for the Black girls that go missing from newspaper headlines and Spotlight 5 p.m. news, what happened to them? Kick the can over, see if the bones glint in the slips of sunshine. Press your ears against the grass. Listen to what bleeds. My mother in her lovely tongue. Those girls are probably with friends hanging out in the basement, wearing cigarette pants. Cigarette pants were fashionable once. They will turn up like loose change, sidelined under sofa cushions. Overdue books sandwiched in sweaters. Favorite hairpins gagged by vents. Don't fret. Fret is a funny word for a young child. Sounds like forget. Don't forget, I won't. About the missing Black girls. Probably already dead in a ditch or a field somewhere. I'm not supposed to think about death. Passing away, kick the bucket 6 feet under, meeting our maker, which is what my teacher said. The guinea pig had stopped moving. Mrs. Hayes poked its feet and then shoved it into a shoebox, said that we could bury it across from the tire swing in the back of the schoolyard. The dirt was ordinary, brown, hard. Eat your snacks, said my mother. Twinkies from 7-Eleven, maybe Wawa. Nothing from Superfresh or Pathmark. White filling, creamy like white fungus, oozing like zit pus, besmirching golden cake. The news says nothing about Black girls that go missing, not even a speck in someone's unread newspaper. Silence is when we inherit ghosts. I see them taking victory laps every night. Thank you. I'm going to read now a poem that's also political. This one will be probably in my new book, which I'm working on right now. It's called American Theory. It was published recently by Beloit, so you can find it there if you're interested. It's called American Theory. Imagine your sack of words drowning when night takes aim at your hide. Daughter that is saturated to other with the waterlog of you must speak English here, you must change your name here, you must try to fit in here. You are supposed to be grateful here. Homeland to them is the watermark in your passport under sea level. How your submerged spirit sloshes on their welcome mat. The South Stars in your shoes push past the tempest of arrival that made your ancestors sink, and you swim to storyteller with memory that never washes out. Thank you. Since Mother's Day is coming, I thought I would read a poem that celebrates my mother. So this poem is called My Mother Gets Her Birth Chart Read. My mother gets her birth chart read by a juju woman who tells her not to be perturbed by blank stars. Leo is ascending, which means good times rocketing faster than sunrise. Marathons of steady light surviving any inklets of dribbled rain. Venus is emerging at 29 degrees north node, which drives the Earth's one-arm push-ups in the front yard. No makeshift morning or lonely larks. Plenty of long dahlias envy her teeming thrill as she dilates in front of the projector, seeking not more light, but her own spell. Thank you. And now I have a poem for those mothers with daughters, this kind of relationship. And this one is called My Daughter is the Wolf of Me. I give thanks that it was published by Mom Egg Review. They have been so kind and so generous, and I'm so glad that there is a journal that supports poets and writers writing about mothering and motherhood. This poem again is called My Daughter is the Wolf of Me. My daughter is the wolf of me. Moon howls my four-legged desires into rivers of lupin flower and alpha star. Hunts down fears nesting in hunter sniffs. lumps of green to thirst caribou, bloats on stars colostrum like extra moonlight. Marvel at her wilderness unwhittled, which mirrors my own. Same anthem combing through trees, same trots of desire unbending to night's stubby clouds. Rain whisks us to den, darkness circled into tree trunks. Slow down blood gets a season, we curve to a lick. Thank you. And since you mentioned that I do have a love of Prince, I do have one Prince poem. This was published in Stand, and it's a fun poem. It merges my love for Prince with a relationship, a love relationship. So if you're a fan of Prince, see if you can hear the songs that I mentioned in the poem. It's called You Follow a Gift Guide According to Prince. The gifted pink cashmere coat huddles with the purple denim jackets in the hallway closet, but I detest pink ever since Lynn dared me to change stuffed pink crayons up my nose. My mother dislodged them with tweezers and chuckled like song at the watering hole. At least you did not ruin the good crayons. Of course not. The Melissa and Doug packs were saved for fast driving fun at the doctor's office and giving the bathtub a full facelift. On cool, rainy days in the mountains of Adjuntas, cashmere is too pretty and gentle to wear. Without a front door moment, the fibers badmouth clouds and recede like kneeling light. If you ask me, that I want the feel-good raspberry beret. I promise to wear it on occasions that are more than just pilgrimage to bad hair days. When the stars are low, I will fling it at the moon and watch it heartbeat back in colors that we have known all of our lives. Thank you. And I have just two more poems that I want to end on a positive note. There's so much negativity happening, but I think of the color green, and I know that green can be associated with envy and money and a lot of negativity, but there's also the green of nature, the green of community, the green of positivity. So when I'm talking about green in these two poems, that's the kind of green that I'm thinking of. G is for Greenhood is the first poem. G is for greenhood, for spring sitting on my shoulders, then fastening to eye level. Chantus, gladiolas spinning, bowing in the distance, sense of greening until earth gets it right. Green that I can't keep to myself. Say, green belongs within reach, like an abstract of the sepal outside of the flower body. You wouldn't recognize me when I cradle green, for fear of it becoming worn in many places. Even when morning lurks upside down, green, not this green, never hurts. Ask the chiracos giving off green among drizzled leaves. Ask the grasshoppers that throw themselves against grass because it glistens. Ask wet green in my blood that hasn't forgotten spare green across homeland, where your green overlaps with mine. And I'll close, thank you. And I'll close with this poem, a reminder to take a break in nature when things get stressful. Just look at the nature, look at the color green, and try to exhale. It's called I Pause to Give Gratitude to Green. I pause to give gratitude to green, green that breathes across sky's still birdcage, green after what hurricane season can muster. It gives me a sign of hope, like garden-scented staircase collecting sunlight. Whenever I come closer to the teeth of desperation, every evening sitting in the tunnels of gray violence, cars rotating to spiral highways, green messages. Remember me. Here, here, here. Green glows like a future life's invitation. I call out like my mother in the doorway. Won't you say for supper, take a place right next to me? Thank you so much.
Dorsia, that is really beautiful. I
Thank you.
Love those poems. They're gorgeous and they're so important. So I'm grateful to you for writing them. And also I'm glad we got to experience you reading them. That really helps you feel and understand a poem.
Oh, thank you. So kind. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Now, if there's time, we're going to have a Q&A, another Q&A, with Karen Alanier and our two readers, Carrie and Dorsia. Karen,
Thank you,
over to
Ellen.
you.
Thank you, Ellen. I just have one question. I think that's all we really have time for, but it's kind of a large question because what I noticed about both of our readers tonight is they both are very attached to the land and to the geography of their interests. And I say it that way because Carrie obviously is writing about Antarctica, but she also has a land is a painted thing. So I know that geography is a very important aspect of what she does. But Dorsia, your land is your homeland. It is your land of danger and disaster and how you survive all of that. So I wonder if you could just say a few things more. Let's start with Dorsia to say just a little bit more about the importance of the land and the, it's climate change, obviously, as well.
Yes, it's incredibly important. And I think I've been living in Puerto Rico for almost 30 years. And I have to say, right before Maria, we had Hurricane Irma. And I really didn't understand the magnitude of a hurricane before. I mean, hurricane season, it's June to November, and we get the warnings every year. You should be prepared, have batteries, you should have, your generator working, you should do all this, you should have a survival pack. And every year, I'm like, oh, yes, we have all this, but I never really thought before that it would happen. And I've heard this before. People in California thought, well, the fires, they're not going to happen to me. New Orleans was the same. The hurricane, it's not going to come to me. And then when it does, it really puts you in the moment where you have to recognize what are we all doing to this earth and how can we, the individual, make a difference? So writing this book, I was keeping a journal before, during, and after Maria, because I was really trying to process, what was happening. So the journal ended up becoming this book. And now that I, look back on my journals and I think about the experience, it has just made me so much more in tune to recognizing the dangers of global warming, climate change, and the individual responsibility that we all have, because every year, it just spreads, and people think, well, I'm immune. But then you look at this wacky weather, the winter storms, the summers that are so hot. So when people think like, well, it doesn't really affect me, I always tell them maybe not directly, but look around you. And it may not affect you now, but think about, the summer, or when you're traveling and all of a sudden there's that winter, blizzard, that winter storm. And then you may begin to realize, we're all connected in that way. And we all really have to do our part to kind of think about what can we do to resolve this big issue.
Thank you, Dorcia. That's so interesting. And I think that word about being how we are connected relative to where we live and where we walk on the earth. And so, Carrie, it's over to you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I was sort of noting words that I thought I should say, and I was struck by your connected because this concept of being interconnected is one that I think a lot about. I don't know I grew up in Minnesota and then I moved to Florida, and there couldn't be two different landscapes, and I feel like that really attuned me to, I don't know, like a really deep respect for like the intelligence of the land. Moving to Florida, at that point, it was like clockwork every day at like 1 o'clock. There'd be a quick thunderstorm to kind of cool things down. And, also living through hurricane season. And as long as I can remember from a very, very, very young age, I've just found kind of like deep solace in nature, very deep nature, like in the middle of the woods. I feel like that is my place. And so um I feel like my yearning is always to kind of go further away, like farther from humans and closer to the trees. Um, and so it's spending more time thinking about that, reading about kind of the intelligence of animal plant life, reading the light eaters is just very fascinating to me. And so, yeah, I have like a deep interest in just thinking about the intelligence of the natural world and, just the harm we do to it, unnecessary harm. And so that I was kind of working through those ideas in The Mouth is also a compass. I was also in DC over my spring break, and I went to the National Portrait Gallery, and they have sweatshirts and ball caps that say "Art is Activism," which I had to buy both of those because I just I love that message, and I that's like what I can do is I'm a poet. For some reason I was like born this way, and so it's the closest thing I can do to sort of kind of process and work through my ideas around climate crisis and our relationship to the land.
Thank you. I think that both of you come at it in different ways, and I think that we have to be conscious of the earth that we live on and how to preserve it. So I applaud you both for being in that camp that is about praising and protecting our natural habitats. So anyway, I'm going to turn it back to Ellen, and Ellen is going to close out the evening. We thank you very much for a wonderful program, everybody, and we'll be back again next month.
Thank you, Karen. That was a great question. Really an important question. And Carrie, I'm in DC, and I'm going to head down to the Portrait Gallery and get one of those T-shirts because what else is there to say? Art is activism. Mm-hmm. And Dorsia, as I've already said, I love your poems. Thank you so much for reading. And Michael, your music is always a wonderful way to start this program. It puts us in the right mood for poetry. Thank you. Luther, thank you for co-hosting with me tonight. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And Karen for leading our team. Thanks also to Henry for his technical magic, and to my fellow co-hosts, Henry again, Majda Gama, Claire McGough, and Luther Jett, who all contribute so much to making Café Muse work. Most importantly, thank you, our amazing audience, for being here. We're the reason Café Muse exists. If you want to enjoy tonight's program again, it will be up on Café Muse's Google channel tomorrow. And you can extend your enjoyment by purchasing the two poets' books in the link that's in the chat and telling other people about Café Muse. I hope you'll join us for our next Café Muse program on Monday, June 1, featuring poet Michelle Evans and the winners of the Jacqueline Potter Young Poets Contest. Please be sure to register for the program at the Café Muse Literary Salon's Google site, so you'll be sure to get the Zoom link for the program. Good night, everyone. And may the force be with all of us, because God knows we need it. And thank you for letting us be part of your evening.